So next up is Marco Gonzalez speaking for Coastkeeper and for Surfrider. And the way you pick someone's pocket is you get them to focus on the horizon and the big picture, and then you pick their pocket locally. And Marco's got the idea somehow that if they grant this waiver, then in the long run, they're going to come up with some better plan. But without a settlement agreement with the EPA, there is no guarantee they do anything. So they can continue with the current situation and just say, well, things are so dire and we don't have any money, so we can't do anything at all. So Marco never quite says, I support the waiver, but he's agreeing with this overall far-sighted plan to grant the waiver and turn their eyes to the future somehow.
My name is Marco Gonzalez. I'm a partner with Coast Law Group. We represent the Surfrider Foundation, San Diego chapter, and San Diego Coastkeeper. Very quickly, by way of history, in 1996, as a legal intern back in law school, I got to work on the original EPA case here in San Diego. Subsequently, I represented San Diego Coastkeeper and Surfrider in the lawsuit against the EPA and against the city over the issuance of the last waiver. I also represented Heal the Ocean in its intervention in the Goleta waiver issue and its commenting on the Morro Bay decision. I've lived 301H my entire career. But let me tell you something. We have also been participating in some interesting water supply issues. As water quality advocates, we've oftentimes ignored the water supply side, but because of desalination issues, we've been forced into water supply policy as well. And frankly, as this entire paradigm of water supply and water treatment has evolved, we've recognized something. And that is, the Holy Grail is not secondary treatment.
No, the Holy Grail isn't secondary treatment. But unless you bring the sewage up to at least secondary standards, you don't have much hope of bringing it to tertiary standards or reusing the water, as Marco's dreaming about.
As Bruce was saying, the Holy Grail is learning how to take our sewage and turn it into drinking water.
And there's the big picture. That's what derails Marco.
Are we going to spend $1 billion or $1.5 billion on an end-of-pipe solution, which simply becomes the argument against further water reclamation in the future?
There's a grain of truth to this, but unless you get started now planning for this future, it's all hogwash and hot air. And just like General Motors' supposed electric cars, it's hogwash and hot air. Because unless you enter the settlement agreement, nothing has to happen.
We need to look at where we generate sewage, look at how we treat that sewage closer to where we generate it so that we don't pump it all over the city. And then we have to put it in reservoirs or other storage facilities until we can put it into our drinking water system.
Well, let's think about this. You keep the water where it is. Don't treat it in a central plant, and treat it in diversified plants, and then put it in reservoirs until we can put it into the drinking water system. That's not a viable plan. You can't put sewage water in a reservoir and expect it to get clean. You have 200 and some million gallons of water a day is a lot of sewage. You just don't have reservoirs that size. You've got to put it in settling basins or into a soft bottom habitat. That's the plan. But Marco's been convinced, I guess, by this big picture thing.
That's the way it's going to be done. There's no question that it works. It's been done for more than 20 years in Virginia. It's happening right now with groundwater injection in Orange County, but frankly, we're behind the times in San Diego. So just as we learned in settling our last lawsuit that we can achieve a project and a process that will get us to 20 or 25 MGD of indirect potable reuse from the North City plant, it's time to look towards the entire system. And frankly, we don't have the tools right now to do that. We can't, as Coastkeeper, as Surfrider, as anyone in the environmental community, tell you or tell the city what is the best way to reclaim 180 million gallons of sewage.
Well, I can tell you the way to start. The way to start is to treat it to the minimum secondary standards and to make a settlement agreement with the EPA to get rid of the waiver.
But what we can do is come to an agreement that says, look, even if we didn't give them a waiver, we know based on Orange County it would take them 10 years. We know based on Goleta, minimum 8 years to develop the secondary treatment project between permitting and construction and engineering and all of that. In 10 years, this is going to be irrelevant. So let's today, in cooperation with the city, move forward with a process that looks at their infrastructure, that looks at their pipes, their pump stations, their reservoirs, their advanced treatment capacity, and their tax dollars, and say, where do we want to be in 10 and 20 and 30 years? The fact of the matter is, if we offload 100 million gallons per day from Point Loma, it might be very inexpensive from some of our constituency. We're all going to take the hit from a PR standpoint, but at the end of the day, I think we'll look back to today and to this effort and say this is where we turn the tide, where we stop discharging this precious commodity into the ocean.